Enough for a quorum. At least you got some money for a change.
Well, should we go?
Over
You
an
mentioned
inch.
that.
Over an inch.
I don't pay attention, that's.
Well, that's people, because of that call you got.
I just picked up
I
some
can
of
plug
that.
in.
I thought we couldn't the last time.
Yeah, we couldn't for some reason, but.
There's HDMI
Yeah,
on the
it's
side.
HDMI. Do you need a cable?
Not now.
So other than that,
I should be in that box, TV, just lying at home. What do you do?
See that.
Should be one of my boxes.
Yeah.
Over there.
Just can't hear anymore.
Oh, it's looking.
What's that?
We did that.
Hey, what?
I keep getting advice from my wife.
No, just that
I got that
you
nature,
need it.
I don't know why.
Because I remember we had
Getting
problems.
worse and worse as you get older.
Yeah, I thought it was.
'Cause they have nothing else to focus on.
Yeah,
Right?
What else?
and then with kind of support, right, for doing what you're doing, so you see them all every day.
All right, let's call this meeting to order. We're on roll call. Commissioner Mecca, excused. Trustee Hoddyshaw. Present. Trustee Renner, not here. Minor Shensky. President Lysick here. Clerk Ford.
Here.
Commissioner Bennett.
Here.
Commissioner Kennedy. And Commissioner Zimbrski excused. We have a quorum. No public hearings tonight. Move on to item 3, consideration and approval of minutes from the February 24th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting.
Move to dispense with the reading of the minutes.
Any further discussion?
There was a correction on the minutes from last meeting, is the fact that inspections were not completed. They were in the process of being completed for the first 6 months. Goes there twice a year, every 6 months.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 We didn't vote on that. That was the further discussion.
Had to think about that.
Motion passes.
That was back on, your, for your fire inspector's report, right, where you were saying that?
Yeah.
It needed to be for the first 6 months?
It'll be for the first 6 months, are not completed yet, but they are in the process of being completed.
Awesome.
Line 10, Sherry Avenue. That is not bipartisan infrastructure funding, that is LRIP, local road improvement plan.
So, under 6B, Bravo, the extended paragraph talking about discussion, down towards the bottom, it says, the CDU is required if one of the 5 conditions is met. Would that be CUG for conditional use grant?
It is. CUG?
Make a motion to accept the minutes from the plan commission meeting on February 24th, 2022 as amended.
Second.
Any further comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 4, public comments. If there are any public comments, please stand, state your name, address, and try and keep it to about 2 minutes. If there are no public comments, we'll move along. Item 5, old business. Review, discussion, and possible recommendation to the village board of the development agreement and stormwater management agreement for Ripplebrook East subdivision. The applicant/property owner is Stephen Stiser. The site located south off Hannaberry Avenue, just east of Ripplebrook West subdivision, is zone R2 residential district with CUG for PUD.
Right, so the commission has reviewed and discussed this specific development agreement a couple of times previously, and it continues to be a work in progress between the staff group, which would be myself, Mike Schober, and Naomi Rauch, and the developer and his attorney to try and reach a meeting of the minds on the exact terms that will be included in this development agreement. So I think that we're very, very close. Certainly what we're down to are legal and engineering questions in the end. But in their absence, Mike and Naomi, I can just walk the commission through that first document following the planning report that does a good job of highlighting the minimal number of points where we're still trying to iron out final details, and kind of illuminates for the commission the points where there has been, and we may now have reached a consensus. Where there's been contention, we've reached a consensus. So if you're looking at the via email document from Ann Chandler, who is the attorney representing the developer in this case, she summarizes things very well in an email of March 22nd. Paragraph 5, section E2, that paragraph in the development agreement talks about providing street lighting. There was some concern about whether we could, in fact, require that there be shields on the street lights, so we don't run into that same problem we had with Ripplebrook West. And in the end, the developer has agreed that he will ask WEPCO to install the shields and cover any additional expense, if there is any, to ensure that that gets done. So that issue is resolved. It's my understanding it's resolved. Paragraph number 2, staff group asks that the change in the reference from stormwater soil stabilization facilities to, and again, this is just semantics really, and it comes up not only in paragraph 2, but also in paragraph 3 and in paragraph 5. And may come up once or twice even subsequently, but for now, those are all the same, and that's been agreed to. It's a semantic issue, the village staff's language will be used. Paragraph number 4, the village attorney referencing page 8, paragraph 2 of the development agreement. It says here that the village attorney and developer will work through those details. I have to jump through here to get to that and tell you what that was about. Give me just a minute. Page 8, paragraph D.
I think it's actually.
Oh, yeah.
it is.
Yeah, so that paragraph that's being referred to there, it talks about the village desires to have the funds held on account until at least 60% of the homes are built for the final lift of asphalt paving to be put down. The reason for that is that we don't want all the home construction activity damaging the final lift of asphalt. But I think the developer and their attorney accurately point out that we only have 14 months to hold a guaranteed amount. And so what I think the village attorney and the developer's attorney have ironed out is a solution that would have the developer make some sort of a commitment to require that the owners of the lots who have not built by the time that 14-month period comes up will be responsible for any damages they or their builder causes to that final lift going forward, okay? So exactly how that legal agreement will be worded is between the attorneys, but it's my understanding that this issue is resolved to everyone's satisfaction. So jumping down then to page 6, or paragraph 6, that was just an internal question from the village attorney to the village engineer, and they're squared away on that. Here we go. Paragraph 7, we talked about that change in language. Paragraph 8, I believe we have ironed this out. This is where the development agreement requires that the developer maintain and keep all roads clean daily, more often if needed during the construction project. The developer had said, and we had said as a staff group, including Henneberry Road and Highway 164 in near proximity to the project. Meaning if trucks are tracking material out and so forth. It's my understanding that the developer has said they're okay with that requirement for all the internal roads and any areas adjacent to the project if the cleanup is due to activity related to the developer's work, okay? So if it's known to be materials and tracking that are occurring as a result of the development project, they're agreeing to keep those roads clean. If it's anything subsequent, then through the building permit process, we would pursue each individual builder thereafter who may be responsible for tracking and so forth after the subdivision's been completed on the development side of it. So I believe that there's a meeting of the minds at that level on that item. Paragraph 9, change that stormwater language. And then also, this I had already talked to you about, the developer's willingness to attach future responsibility for damages to the final lift of asphalt to the buyers of those lots, the owners of those lots, after 14 months, if their builders or they themselves cause damage to it. Paragraph 10, stormwater language. Paragraph 11 talks about paragraph 15 in the document, which is about
That was more on the engineering side,
more in the engineering side.
regarding the letter of credit.
Oh, okay.
I think she's looking at the page 15, item 15. It's got to do with,
The total cost to complete the public improvements.
Right.
And Neil and I are working that out.
Yes, and that doesn't have to be approved by the planning commission. That really goes to the summary document that accounts for all of the costs for the public improvements and setting aside that letter of credit. So there is an issue that still needs to be resolved. It has to do, I believe, with topsoil, and whether that topsoil will be included as one of the public costs, public improvement costs, and if so, then it gets included and its 10% addition gets included. So I trust that will be worked out between the parties before the village board would see this.
Is this in relation to topsoil that would be brought in from outside or topsoil that's being stored on site?
It's on site.
On site, okay. You're not looking to bring in any foreign soils in, right? You got plenty there. Yeah.
You know, we can always haul it out in the ditches if we need material.
Yeah. I was gonna say, because you got a lot that you're going to have to move because of elevation change in there. I'm looking at the property if I remember right.
It balances very well,
Balances, okay.
the site.
next item down talks about the public and private improvements. We already addressed the streetlight issue. The village attorney and developer's attorney, I think, have reached a meeting of the minds on what constitutes a public improvement and what does not. And only those that are going to be public improvements will be escrowed for or a letter of credit set up for. Then on the final page,
It's titled policy, you see. It's the development title.
what was that?
It's in regarding the title. He just wants me to show the clear title to the property, and there's no liens or encumbrances on the property.
Oh, you're taking that item, taking care of that form.
I'm sorry, yes, yeah.
Perfect. Yes, the village attorney was very strong-minded about the idea that we want a position in the title policy that is secure for
But
reasons of
but technically you can't, so.
And so, from a legal standpoint, the village attorney will give us his final blessing on the final language before this goes to the village board, but I believe they have iron out. So with that, the other document that's included here, because it relates directly to the development agreement, is the stormwater management agreement. And that one, staff is in full agreement, I believe, with the developer. The document is according to Hoyle. So both of these, you'd be considering tonight making a recommendation to the village board for approval. I would subject that recommendation for approval, if you're thinking about doing that tonight, to final blessing by the village attorney and the village engineer as to all the terms and conditions contained in the development agreement.
I guess my question, and it's a little bit of clarification if nothing else, can we take this to a call to vote tonight because there's still outstanding items that may affect how the final document is going to be presented? It seems
Yeah.
like there's still I mean, the gap's getting smaller, but the gap's still there between what the village has and what the developer wants to include.
I think we're like 99% there.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
We're
I
not
really-
that
It
close.
sounded like it was a little bit further away.
No.
No, it's truly minor details where I believe we have a meeting of the minds. I want everyone to see the final language and the village attorney to sign off on that before it gets taken up by the village board. The language will change only very little.
Okay. Mr. Stais, you agree with that as well?
Yes, I do.
That's good, thank you.
Yeah.
That's why I was wanting some clarification.
Yeah, and I'm not sensing that there's an urgency, but I don't think there's any more for the commission to really review here.
Is the engineering pretty much the stormwater?
Really,
The discrepancy? I mean, I remember reading it last night.
No, it's just wording. It just was the wording.
The actual stormwater plan has been laid out for
Oh, it's been approved.
quite some
Yeah, a long
time.
time ago.
So, quite some time.
I guess referring to the developer's agreement, it was just like moving one word from here to there, basically.
It's the difference between saying that, the developer is responsible to stabilize the stormwater soil stabilization facilities. And what we want in the document is that it says stabilization of the stormwater management facilities. It's
It's
clear.
semantics, but
It's semantics, it's clearer, but everybody's good
Right.
with it. So.
Any other questions?
Has there been communication on the draft language of the buyer as far as the road?
No, I haven't seen that
If the
yet.
final lift, that there's property still undeveloped or unbuilt, is there any language to that at all?
Not yet. It's gonna be the developer's attorney's responsibility to propose that language, and our village attorney's responsibility to review and approve of it.
That would be designed into the developer's agreement, correct?
It will.
So that'll be under item 9 here.
Mm-hmm.
Is that typical to put that type of language into a developer's agreement, that if you have not built within a certain amount of time, you accept responsibility for damage to the second lift of asphalt?
No, I mean, typically what, some municipalities have what they call ditch or road bonds. And what that means is when they come in with their building permit, they'll give the village or the municipality $2,000. So that way if they damage the road, or if they damage the ditch, they gotta clean the ditch out, repair the road, and then they get the money back. And if they don't, then you've got the $2,000 to correct the ditch swale so that it flows, and or repair the road. A lot of municipalities do that, as well as some,
But,
well, Pleasant Prairie doesn't, Kenosha doesn't.
no, I didn't answer it. I
Okay.
just said, I go, sometimes they will do that
Right.
in cases.
Correct. And then, and other developers will write in the offer to purchase or in a document that's been already recorded that they have to pay the developer the ditch bond or the architectural control committee, if it's controlled by, the developer, and they'll hold the money to ensure that the roads are repaired and the ditches are brought to proper grade.
We have paperwork like that we'll fill out on a new house, but we don't exchange any money. But we'll go out there and kind of inspect and then point out, like the house on Badger Trail, for instance. We didn't have any issues out there, but like they filled out the documents beforehand, just in case. Basically holds them liable that if all of a sudden Eric or myself goes out there and they rolled over the edge of the road and it needs
Right.
repaired, that they're liable for that, and we have that document.
So it sounds like you already have some liability documents.
But no form of escrow? or-
Yeah, we don't do a bond, any type of bond. Not saying we couldn't.
Right,
But-
and it sounds like this may ultimately lead to that being implemented as a routine part, since we're now certain that unless the law changes, we're in this position where we get, 14 months and then.
Well, it's 14 months, the final lift goes on, and I still have to guarantee it for a year after that.
Is it 14 months or 60% of homes?
I'm sorry.
14 months or 60%?
No,
of
it's a flat
14
14 month by state statute. And no ifs, ands, or buts, and any municipality cannot have an ordinance contrary to that, if they require a letter of credit. I mean, there's another way I can do it, some municipalities, about 80% of municipalities allow you, as soon as you have the preliminary plat approved, I could go start my construction at my own risk.
Not here.
And I'm just saying, some municipalities will allow you.
Some municipalities build improvements.
That's true. And I think it may go back to that.
Good with the way this reads.
Major objections? I don't have any major objections.
I don't either. No, it looks okay.
make a motion to, oh, Mike, if you were breathing there to do it, go ahead. I'll make a motion to make the recommendation to the board to accept the development agreement, stormwater management agreement for Ripple Brook East subdivision.
With the
Oh, with the,
final edits by the attorneys.
yeah, with the, yes.
The blessing there.
Revisions
City attorney's approval.
And the engineer.
prior to village board consideration.
I think the engineer's all good with everything, they're just waiting for you to get back with one number on topsoil, right? Okay, I have a motion.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Lee.
Appreciate it.
Have a good weekend. Item 6, new business. A, review, discussion, and possible action on the following use approval and occupancy permit application received for units in the Lake Park Storage Condominium development located at West 229 South 8650 Big Bend Drive. Sub I, Building 1, Unit 1, tenant Jake Jankowski / Diamond Dust Floors, owner Schwinn Properties LLC, proposed use business storage and small business trade and contractors office / shop, not including retail, wholesale, or showroom / display.
So this applicant completed, first of all, we had an original application form that we had brought to the commission back in October of '21 for use and occupancy approvals, an application for use and occupancy approvals in the Lake Park Storage Condos. So beginning then, we had this application form that was ultimately filled out by the first batch of guys who bought in 2 units here or came to the owners as prospective tenants. That whole first batch came to the planning commission for review and consideration last month. The takeaway from that discussion on all of those items included some ideas about changing the information that we're soliciting in the application in order to make good decisions about these occupancies. And so an addendum was created, called it Addendum A, that reflected what I think were the commission's intentions as a part of last month's meeting. So this particular applicant has completed the initial application, and then they submitted an Addendum A. Or no, they didn't. After Addendum A, I created a revised application in its entirety that molded the first 2 together. The original application and Addendum A became the new application form, okay? So that's on your agenda a little bit later on tonight to consider approving that and maybe even amending it still. But, so we now have an up-to-date application from this applicant, and he reveals there that he is a business occupant who intends to do business material storage in his unit. And he's identified it as Diamond Dust Floors, and the principal material stored there is for exactly that, to do epoxy floor coverings in concrete environments or hard surface environments. So as a part of this application, he indicates that he's a very low intensity user, very minimal trips per day, which is a new piece of information that we asked for. It's generally 7 days a week potentially, anywhere from 6 a.m. through midnight is what he has said he may be in and out of that unit during those days and times. But he indicates it's less than 5 vehicle trips per day coming into that unit. So he is a small business trade and contractor's office. Therefore, he's a business site and operating plan review and approval, and that's what's in front of you for consideration tonight. There's obviously no architecture, there's no landscaping, there's no dumpster review, location review. All of those things are addressed in the content of the developer's agreement as an umbrella to the development of the whole. So I'm going to just turn it over to the commission for review, discussion, and possible approval of this site plan of operations.
Mr. Jankowski, are you present tonight?
The owner of the unit, Mr. Schwid, is present tonight, so he is the landlord of the unit.
He's out working tonight.
Gotcha. Mr. Schwid, do you know the epoxy for flooring, is that flammable, any type of hazard materials to it?
I do know that the chief had asked to have the, is it MSDS
MSDS sheets.
sheets put there, but I don't believe so. And there isn't much in there. I mean, he doesn't have huge, he's a small business, so I mean, he doesn't have a big inventory.
Have you received those SDSs?
I don't think-
As we kind of discussed last time, one of my bigger concerns is if there is hazardous materials present in a storage capacity, if there's proper systems, fire systems, or anything to control that if there would happen to be any type of a fire
Flammable cabinet
in a flammable cabinet.
or storage, storage area or whatever. All depends how much product he has. I don't know what that product is, how much flammability is there, and how much he's gonna store yet. And once I know that, then I will say, hey, you need this and you need that, and we'll get that in. But in the meantime, you can't say nothing or do anything until I know what he's gonna put in there.
Right. So you haven't done an inspection yet?
No, I have not.
Okay.
I've been there, looked, I did the inspection on the buildings prior, and I've been on, and the other ones coming down the line. Those have been looked at, but there's nothing in them.
Kind of jumping the boat here a little bit, but this is on later in the agenda, but it addresses what we're talking about now. We have to figure out a way to grant occupancy prior to a fire inspection because it's catch-22. He's got nothing to inspect until they're moved in.
But they are moved in, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah, and
Just
he's
so
been
you
there-
see it,
Some are, some aren't,
And
some
he's
are.
been in, well, we're talking about the applicant for tonight. He's been in there for some time, correct? For a month or two?
Yes.
Yeah, fully moved in.
I would assume so.
Supposedly at least, so
I,
it's different, I
Right.
know, moving forward, where there's not already occupants that have been granted soft occupancy or hard occupancy or whatever it is, but we're at the case where someone's moved in, and we should be able to determine what they have in place. So,
He was partially moved in, but not all the way moved in. I asked him what chemicals he's gonna have in there, he's gonna tell me to get that information. I haven't had time or haven't had the information in my hand yet. Once I'll get it, I'll let you know.
the other issue with that too, that we talked about last time as well, was involving with the floor drain going down to a common sump tank underneath. And if there's any type of hazardous material release, if it gets down in there and reacts with some other hazardous material from one of the other units, and how that can be avoided or talked about, because it's somewhat on an uncontrolled situation.
Well, then you probably have to have special tanks, double wall, with trick valves on so that they do not leak. And if they do leak, they must have maybe a catch basin below it to catch the material, if it's that much of a problem.
And I don't know if it is or not.
I don't know if it is or not neither. Okay.
I think he's just saying that might be something
I know what he's
that
saying.
you'll need to catalog
Yeah,
over the
right.
course of all your inspections and go, hey, unit 1 and unit 4 have non-compatible liquids.
The reason I say that is a lot of the epoxy resins that's used for floor things are part A, part B, and one is fairly benign, but the other one is fairly reactive in a lot of cases. And it's just, I'm just stating my concern with that.
With Mr. Jankowski not being here, I mean, he might be using a catch-all phrase, epoxy, and it might be one of the newer polymers that
it is.
One part.
It is It's a newer product.
So, you know, I would say I'm gonna let the fire inspector deal with whatever chemicals they are and act accordingly, and we should focus on the business plan of operations portion of approval. Maybe we set a timeline for Bill, tell him he's got, 60 days or 90 days or whatever to complete inspections.
I would say that, if he moves in, when he moves in, let me know what he's got. And I should be able to know that within 30 days. I would think.
I understand these people don't quote-unquote do business out of there 7 days a week, and they may be hard to get a hold of in 30 days, which is why I'm willing to extend that timeline out, I think. I don't want to be unrealistic.
Okay.
And
Am I wrong in my thought that they're already fully moved in and they've been in there for greater than 60 days at this point?
They have some materials in there at this time, yes, they have flooring materials in there.
So I
That's all
don't
I've
see why we
seen.
need to grant another 60 days for inspection. I'm just, from a planning commission person, I'm frustrated with the fact that we've allowed occupancy into these buildings with no inspections, no paperwork, and no knowledge of what they're up to. This has been expressed before, but now we're looking at potentially granting another 60 days for inspections to.
There were no
You said no knowledge of anything in there? Yes, I had the knowledge that there's flooring in there. And that's all that's in there right now at this time, at the time that I did the inspection. If there's anything else beyond that, I was not told. I haven't gone in there yet.
One thought that I have is, being a small business, he's not stockpiling
No.
hundreds of gallons of this material. It's pretty much he's purchasing what he's got for jobs coming up, and that's what he's storing for that.
Yeah, a job or
That's
two,
like-
I can't imagine.
I don't,
Just,
right, that's why I'm kind of looking at it. I understand that there's definitely concern of what materials are being stored in there, but I'm kind of looking at this as,
But in the fire service, there's rules of that.
Right,
You
exactly.
have
As
so
far
much,
as
and
storage,
over a million gallons and so
yeah.
forth and everything else.
And I've seen that in construction where, the painting contractor separates the materials on
Right.
different parts of the building while the construction's going on to
Exactly.
keep that from happening. And being a storage facility, you can't get the 100-foot separation or 50-foot separation, so you have to use a cabinet or whatever. And I guess I'll leave that to you to make sure that
Yeah.
on your biannual inspections or twice-a-year inspections, that you're checking that.
We'll keep the volume down.
So how long do you think it'll take you to get over there and check them out?
Might be there tomorrow. As long as I
But
can
that-
get told, if I can get a hold of him,
I was gonna say, that's provided he's gonna be there
That's
tomorrow,
right, he's
right?
gonna be there. Well, he has to be there, he has no choice, either tomorrow or next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
I'll
Thursday,
call
Friday.
tonight.
You call him tonight, take care of it that way, whichever way you wish.
I think the only thing you gotta realize is at the beginning, there was no form for an application. It was a building permit form, and then there was another form, and now there was a third form, and I think they filled these out when they were required to fill them out. So,
Right.
that's where these delays have been. I don't think anybody wanted to have this take as long as it's taken.
I mean, this gentleman here, I probably would wanna do it quickly as possible, because it's been there a while. And there, I think there's another one in there that's been in there a while too, that needs to be addressed. But I would do this, within as quickly as possible. Next, so the other one's coming down the line, give me 30 days, that's all I need.
Just to clarify though, that the October meeting in 2021, the topic on the agenda at that meeting was, should we begin allowing any occupancies?
No, I understand.
Any occupancies.
I understand.
So, and the answer
No,
that
but-
night was,
but-
no, we're not ready yet. So,
That's between you and the developer.
well, I'm just saying, from
Yeah.
the standpoint of not knowing that applications were required, I think.
No,
I
we
think
knew
that was
applications were
perfect.
required, but
Okay.
like I said, the first time they were given an application that was a building permit that was supposed to be written as occupancy permit and just written what, according to your building inspector, what they were storing in there. and then you actually developed an actual form. So I believe the first round of applications were on your building permit form and not on an actual occupancy form because there did not exist an occupancy form.
It did exist. It existed the night of the October meeting.
Okay, well
It
then,
was here in front of this commission.
okay, well then unfortunately the building inspector wasn't handing those out.
And, you know, if there's a lack of communication at our level, that's our problem. But yes, it did exist. I just want to be clear on that.
Can I get the chief's phone number and I'll give it to the tenant and he'll call
Okay, that's it. Area code 414-520-1631.
him? Okay.
If I don't answer, tell them to leave me a message.
Well, I'll reach him either tonight or first thing tomorrow and he'll call you.
Beautiful. We'll take care of it.
Any other questions? So we need a motion for approval pending fire inspection / recommendation of proper storage.
Make a motion to approve the plan of operation pending inspection from fire department approval. Is it 30 days?
Oh, yeah.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 6B, review, discussion, and possible approval of the business, site, and operating plans for applicant / property owner Demi and Andy Smith to occupy this building and site with their BRT Services LLC trucking service business. The property, which is zoned I-1 Light Industrial, is located at West 224 South 8450 Industrial Avenue. BBV tax parcel number 2068045.
This lot was the home of Sweet Ball until fairly recently, within the last year. Sweet Ball made a move to the south at the corner of Bucket and Industrial Avenue. And BRT Trucking, who you know from our industrial park over on Wind Drive, I don't know if you're relocating or if you're going to have two locations.
We're trying to locate all here, from Industrial Drive
Okay.
eventually.
Right, so really the site is kind of a per existing conditions type of an arrangement. The fencing that was required of the developer of when Sweet Paul took over occupancy, the landscaping and so forth, the fencing was put up. So that's really the basis on which this applicant wants to take over occupancy. The use is consistent with the list of uses allowed in the I-1 zoning district, the light industrial district. According to their site plan, what they're proposing to do is have no outside storage of materials, equipment, or supplies. So I bring that up because we have had, an experience over on Wind Drive where things kind of grew up out of and beyond what was approved there. So this application says there will be no outdoor storage of materials, equipment, and supplies. So that means there's no bins, there's no wood chips, there's no stone piles.
Yeah, I've seen that tonight. I was on the road when my wife and my secretary put that together. There is a concrete pad in the back there that was planned for storage that we'd like to do outside storage there, but it's pallet racking. Just neat storage back in that corner. But,
So that's new. You'll have to contend with that issue on the fly tonight. Don't know if that's tall pallet racking or what materials will be stored or who it's going to be visible to. But that's good to know. Is there anything else about the application that's not consistent with?
Everything else I've seen on there was consistent.
Okay, good. So there will be no outdoor storage, parking of any materials, equipment, or supplies unless you approve it tonight, based on what the applicant will tell you about that. It does identify outdoor parking of semi-trucks and employee vehicles. The semis would be located, and the employee vehicles would be located inside the fenced yard area. I wanted to point out to the commission tonight, I didn't put it in recommended conditions, but the fenced area is fully opaque. You can see right through it. And so everything that's parked back there is visible to the surrounding view. The fencing that's there is really a security feature more than it is a screening feature. So if you've looked at the site recently and feel like it should be screened, then some slatting would have to be put into the fencing, something along those lines, because right now there's fencing but no screening. The dumpster sits outside of the fenced area, and I'm not sure why that is, but it's proposed to be screened by parked cars, which is a little bit of an uncertain kind of a screening device.
That's kind of where it's been for like the last 7 years, and the agreement with John's, they replace the dumpster once a year, so it's not bad looking, I guess, newer,
Yeah.
a newer dumpster.
Every time we go through a new site plan of operations review, or somebody new is occupying an existing site, we try to identify, without being onerous, we try to identify those points about the site that can be brought up to code. And this struck me as one of them. Since you do have a substantial sized yard in back, I would think that their dump truck could, or their pickup truck could get in there to empty this and
The only
get
problem
back
is,
out.
we had discussed it with John's, the only problem with that is, putting the fence in the area when the fence is closed, they come super early in the morning, and I'd have to give another security, like, I gotta give the fire department a key for the fence, that's a whole nother option. I'm like, I really didn't wanna do that, to have more keys floating around, because it is secured in, and
Understood.
I wanted to leave that on the front. We do get it dumped once a week, so there's no garbage outflowing, try to be super clean over there. I mean, if you guys looked at the lot, I keep my equipment very clean, and it's not messy at all. I keep everything uniform in line. I kinda got OCD, so I wanted to make it look nice, so.
So maybe an in-place screen could be constructed, like you see at many of the other sites, where it's a wooden screen with gates, or a cyclone fence with gates, but slats, and then maybe something like that could be, but that's up to the planning commission to decide. So we address the dumpster. The trucking operation is proposed to run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I don't see that as an issue in an industrial park. My only thought, and again, I didn't make it a condition, but do we have any concern about any vehicles going north and heading out through Lake Park Estates? I assume semi-trucks would not be allowed on those streets. I don't know if it's signed for that, but you may want to make it a condition of the approval.
It was signed, but the sign disappeared.
It's
Okay.
up there. It's up again.
It is again?
Yeah, it says 7 ton, no trucks.
Oh,
At
that's
the end
just
of the industrial, and then the same thing coming in.
That's a temporary for the frost, till it gets out of the ground.
There's still no trucking sign there though.
The sign that was out there was illegal.
Oh, is it?
I believe it said no outlet or no through street or
No
something
true
like that.
street, where it says,
And it can't be labeled as such.
right.
So the Public Works Department can work through what signs are allowed to be out there and should be out there, but you can still make that a condition of this approval, that vehicles entering and exiting this site are all going southbound.
Yeah. It's-
Could ever leave that 7-ton sign out there year round too.
I thought there used to be a sign that said.
I could have swore I just.
There
thought
may be a
we did.
no
There's still a
trucking sign,
on
but
it
I
that says
know
no
one sign that
trucking.
was removed had to do with no through street or something like that.
So then with the balance of the application, they indicate no exterior changes are proposed to be made to the building. No changes are proposed to the exterior lighting or to the site landscaping. So if that's what your application says, that's what you're held to. So if you make changes in the future, they need to be approved first.
The only thing is the sign, but it should be on the,
And I think we gotta get a different permit for that if we do a
Right.
sign, so.
Right, so I did say in conditions that you need to hook up with the building inspector, fill out a sign permit application, and get his approval before you could put a sign up. So then, just to summarize the recommendations that I had put in, that you would consider attaching if you're inclined toward an approval tonight, would include everything that's contained in the application is what's being approved, nothing more. Okay? Sign permit application has to be secured, filled out and a permit secured from the building inspector. No outside storage of, or parking of any materials, equipment, or supplies, whether it's inside or outside the fenced area, is expressly prohibited without the prior consent of the planning commission, okay? Number 4, applicant to prepare a detailed plan for screening of the dumpster and submit it for village staff review and approval as to the design and location. Once a plan's been approved, the applicant has to secure the necessary permits and install the screening device. Alternatively, you could park or store the dumpster behind the building. And condition 5, that the building inspection and fire safety officials inspect the building and site prior to and periodically throughout this occupancy to ensure that all building and fire codes unique and applicable to this use are being abided by. I'll turn it over.
I got a couple of questions. Are all the vehicles under your control or they're subcontracted,
They're all mine.
all yours? Okay.
The only ones that I don't control, obviously my employees, but, you know, I tell them where to park, so.
Oh, I meant like for the actual, rigs.
Yeah, everything that's on my property is owned by me and my wife.
Okay, all right. Are you gonna have storage of, fuels, like a fuel cell, anything on site?
Not at the moment, no.
Okay.
I think if that changes, that'll be years down the road, but we're not set up for that, so.
Okay. What about for, heavy diesel repair or anything of that nature?
Well, we work inside the shop, we work on our own trucks inside of our shop, that's about all we do in there.
Okay.
And if you're looking for the liquids that are inside that shop, they're all been inspected already and been taken care of by the fire inspector. It's all been approved.
All right, cool. This would be the full footprint of what's over on Wind Drive now, right? That would be coming over eventually, you said?
Yeah, my brother still runs out of Wind Drive,
Okay.
so he's still a trucking company down there, but I still store a couple trailers down there until I'm in the process of downsizing a little bit, so.
Okay.
So I still have a couple trailers stored down on Wind Drive, so.
Do you have, just out of curiosity, is there another footprint of BRT there on industrial now? Like north and west up there? There's a building that has a BRT on the back door of it for, I don't know if that was you guys or something else.
Yeah, no, not, that's the only place that I got.
Okay. Just happened to see that from our property. Sorry, that was just curiosity more than anything.
You live on the backside of the.
Yeah, I live on
I
the
used to work with Mike Kahn on projects, and I helped him on projects, and he let me store some things over there, but I'm not over there anymore. So.
Oh, okay, all right. That's probably where that came from.
Also with fire inspector, he is going to be having a gate across the back parking lot. If one of the trucks catches on fire, which can happen, it will be a Knox box there. Will you still want to do that yet? Okay.
Yes.
The Knox box, where the fire department will have to trigger it and then get the key out and unlock the gate, and then we can get in and put the fire out. And also probably for the building too, in case there's an internal fire. But the doors are expensive.
Yeah.
I didn't see that we had addressed anything about lighting. I would assume we were just gonna leave lighting as is.
Yeah, I did. There was a couple LEDs that were burned out, I just replaced LEDs, but they did a really good job. I mean, honestly, the building was beautiful when we got it, so just as long as we keep the upkeep on it, it should stay the same.
Now they went down the road and did the same.
Yeah,
They went down the road.
Everett and his wife did a fantastic job.
Just to clarify, your brother runs the place over on Wind Drive?
We're still joined, we're still together down there.
Does he expect to continue running that place?
Yeah.
Is he going to clear out the giant pile of rocks he's got in the back yet?
That, well, I talked to the building.
He's supposed to have it all by now. We were told 30 days.
Well, it's close to 30 days. What happened was, he's doing a project for the War Museum, the War Memorials Museum. We were supposed to get down there right away and haul the material straight down from Dresser, Wisconsin, but they had some issues with the DNR at the project, and the stone had to come off immediately. So we stocked it there until we can
It's
get
still
it done.
coming off.
What's
Still
that?
coming off.
Yeah, there's about 120 ton left to come down yet, but after that, hopefully, now that all this downfall rain, they'll be able to start trucking back into the job site, so that's the plan.
Do you intend on screening in a dumpster?
Yes.
No, I wasn't planning on it.
And the fence would need screening too as per current code.
No, there's other buildings in the industrial park that don't have screens for the whole fence to screen that whole property in. It's thousands and thousands of dollars to put screen lathing through all that fence. I mean, it was already multiple dollars to put that fencing up the way it was.
I think we were just looking at the driveway going in.
I would be thinking even along the south line, but it's the commission's call. When you come up from the south, you can really see the entire yard.
That's only because that lot's vacant now. Before, when custom structure was in there, it was all just trailers sitting there. I mean, there was no requirement on that. When trailers are sitting there, you'd never notice that. And now that the lot's vacant and he sold off property, now it's a different animal. But like I said, I keep everything neatly in line. Everything's perfectly in row. It doesn't look out of order.
And the lot that he's talking about next to him is Dan Miner's lot. Custom structural. He retired from what he was doing, sold that building that he had, but he still has that lot yet. And he had already talked to me about it, what he thinks about putting a building in there. So I said, yeah, put a building in there. So that'll block some of the view of that parking lot eventually anyway.
Yeah, he wants to do some like condo storages over there or
Right.
something eventually.
Your pallet racking in back on that slab, how tall?
It's 8 foot tall. The only reason why I have pallet racking back there is for skid steer attachments, so that it's not taking a bunch of room. I just stack them up on that. And once I seen that on the way here, I'm like, oh, geez, I didn't put that on there. So.
What's the building that's to the north of there?
To the north, I don't know what that guy does. He's got storage units in the back, and then up front, I think he works on hot rods or something.
Yeah, it's, I can't think of his name now.
What kind of a
But
fence?
he has pole barns back there, he has antique cars back in there.
What's the fencing like between the two properties there? I mean, is it consistent with the rest of your fencing?
Yeah,
around?
it's the same all the way through, all the way around.
Ignition works.
It's a newer
They're
chain
changing
link
that
fence
fence
around the whole
to
property.
ignition works.
That chain link fence extends out to the front
It does.
property line, north and south sides?
Sprinkler system.
Yeah, it goes to the back side of the building, so goes north to south. And then our driveways.
Kind of forms like what looks like an H then, on the property?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any type of, I see one tree out front, is that all there is just one kind of out in front of the building?
Yeah, there's an apple tree out there with some shrubs on the corner.
Okay.
Over by the fence, there's a trough with trees in it also, by the building side.
anything else besides the semi trucks and the items on the pallet racking outside?
Well, the skid steers and loaders, I mean, them will go in the semi parking. They're all out on site right now for snow removal, but they'll sit there for the summer.
Would that be considered equipment?
Yep.
Yep.
Because right now it's no outside storage except for the semi trucks.
Yeah, like I said, I see that on the way here.
So how many loaders and skid steers are we talking about? Is
3.
there additional?
Just 3.
3?
Yeah.
3 of each?
I got 2 skid loaders and 1 loader.
Okay. Nothing else besides the skidders and the loader?
Not that I own at this time.
Shooting plow blades with them in buckets.
I keep all them at my farm, my brother's farm out in Lynn Lake. I keep all that stuff over there. I really don't plan on, the yard is pretty much, I wanna keep it as organized as I can, so I keep all that odds and ends stuff over at the farm, so.
So it won't be there, the loader and
The 2 skid loaders and loader will be at the yard because
just all the attachments.
the attachments for the skid loaders will stay at the property, but all the plows, the push boxes, all that'll go to the farm.
Mike, Tom, you guys got any comments on it?
What's the square footprint of the pallet racking? Just one section or is it multiple
It's
sections?
like an L shape, it's, I guess square footage would be less than 200 square feet, I suppose.
So yes, do we want to put that as a condition of pallet racking to make it maximum area?
That's just gonna kinda line that concrete pad in the back corner, right?
Correct, that's all, it's just,
Well, down one side, across the back.
correct,
We really have room for a whole lot more than that.
no.
I would say just make the pallet racking condition that it stays on that pad.
Is that also where you're gonna park the loaders, 3 loaders?
I'll park them in line, I could probably put skid loader on that pad too, I suppose. Park them in line with the employee parking.
Your intent is these both get parked together on the north side?
What's that?
That north side of the lot line is what your intent is?
Yeah, everything sits on a nice diagonal line on the north side of the property. Or south side, I'm sorry.
Your thoughts on the fencing was to basically put in additional materials in the fencing for opaqueness all the way around 360?
No, my thought was to block out the north-south leg of the fence between the south lot line and the building, and possibly block out like the first half of the fencing, the west half of the fencing along the south lot line.
Okay. Would you be opposed to considering that, given the fact that you're gonna have some equipment other than
Yeah,
semi
'cause
trucks in there?
we looked at, I figured there would be something of this, so we looked at the cost of it, it was over $6,000 just to do the slotting inside the fence, and I'll be honest with you, I'm pretty tapped the way that fuel prices have went and everything else, I mean, I'm doing everything I can to stay afloat, keep my guys busy, so, you know, as of this time, I don't think I can afford to do that right now. I mean, I'm pretty much maxed out where I'm at.
If we give you a certain amount of time to get it done, would you be able to?
I wouldn't be opposed to looking at more options, but I'll be honest with you, right now, I can't even think of how that would cost me in the future here. The cost of everything going up. I mean, it is an industrial park, you gotta look at it that way, I mean,
There is
It's not-
standards to go with the industrial.
I get that,
Something
but I mean, I'm
It's
going
getting
off
better,
this-
it's getting a lot better.
It's
Incrementally.
very neat in there, but I look at my other neighbors that have fencing, and I don't see any of them guys with slots in their fence.
Some do, recent approvals have required it.
That's the whole thing, every time a property turns over, it gives us an opportunity to improve it, as well, you've seen the sweep ball.
Yeah, no, I get it, I get it.
And we want to continue going forward in that direction too. You know, every time someone buys another piece of property, clean it up a little more and make it a little better for yourselves in there.
I did spend a lot of money in the beginning, I put crushed asphalt down in the whole back parking lot, I changed all that right away and made that look more presentable, and
We saw what you did over on Wynn too, I mean.
the
nice
potentials
job.
are there, it'll take me time, you know. Like I said, I'm not opposed to it, I can't do anything, I can't even think of it right now, with the cost of everything.
Anybody else have any questions, comments?
Mike, Tom, you guys got anything on fencing? Any opinions one way or the other?
And the screening I would see on the street side, if you're planning, you know, the neighboring lot, I mean, to the north, that's pretty screened by the other buildings. Front side, you know, between the building and the lot line. The south side, that's a lot. I understand your point, that's a lot of fence to screen. And if another building was up, then it's, you know, his cost, so.
And if I look at the cost of maybe screening just the front side, would that,
If we put a requirement to do that right away, and then at least give you that front side of the
Just
screen.
do the gate first.
do the gate in that front 12 feet or whatever to the end of the property, I mean, I can probably stomach some of that right now and to appease make everything work. I just know that it's
Well, so the 6,000 was for like the whole run?
just that side,
Oh, just that side?
yeah, just the side.
I'd feel comfortable if it was the gate in that area, the north-south run right there by the building down to the south property line. Because that's like
And
you
you're gonna do
said,
something with the dumpster and the screening there, right?
Yeah, I can put a corral up, close.
I think that would be a good compromise.
I'm good with that.
Mike, what do you think?
I agree.
All right.
I appreciate it.
Make sure the slats that you choose are full screening slats.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of different grades of coverage,
Okay,
so you're looking for the full coverage slats.
okay.
So I'd make a motion to approve, with amendment to item 3, for the equipment to be up to 3 pieces, other than semi-trucks, and the pallet racking to be contained within the concrete pad,
And 8 feet tall.
and 8 feet tall. And that screening would be for the street side facing fence and gate. And item number, is that item 4? With the dumpster collector.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to confirm the dumpster enclosure plan, you can give that to Jason for review.
I don't need a full permit for that, do I?
Yeah, but you might.
Just, it'll be a basic building permit for that, so.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. Item 6C, review, discussion, and possible approval of proposed detached accessory storage structure that exceeds 800 square feet in area that sits forward of the front line of the principal structure. The applicant/property owner is Tyler and Anna Porter. The property is located at South 84 West 23245 Sherman Lane. Tax parcel number 207-204-7001. It is zoned R2 residential.
Right, so the commission has looked at many of these kind of requests where the building's over 800 square feet. In this case, it's 900 square feet that we would like to put up. One of the provisions in the zoning code is that if you have more than 40,000 square feet on your property, you can have a accessory building up to 2% of that total lot area, provided the building plan is reviewed and approved by the planning commission. So that's what's one of the reasons why this building is in front of you tonight. The code does provide that the accessory structure should be compatible to, consistent in colors and materials with the principal structure on the site. The proposed building is all metal, walls, roofing, and it is consistent in colors but not materials to the principal residence, I guess I would say. So I'll point that out for the commission, but it's your prerogative how you want to proceed on that point. Then the other issue is that the proposed building sits forward of the principal residence on the site, which the code prohibits without planning commission approval. So that can be approved by the commission if you're inclined to. But the code does not say that the planning commission can approve a building so far forward of the principal structure that it also violates the basic setback requirement of the district. Right now, the setback requirement in the R2 district is 35 feet. And at the time that this subdivision was approved, the setback requirement was 50. So most of the buildings in the development are set back 50 feet. It looks to me, Tyler, based on your plans, that you're showing a proposed setback of 26.2 feet. But the line you've drawn between the proposed structure goes from the structure wall to a dotted line. It doesn't go to the front lot line. So I'm not sure what the actual setback is that you're proposing. You see what I mean?
Yeah, I think that,
You think the line is wrong and the number is right, or what do you think?
I just took a little wheel measuring device, and it's, that line is not surveyed, it's just an approximation, just based on my little cheapo way to measure it.
Okay,
I would need to get that surveyed and have that
right.
set back, in stone.
That number would have to be buttoned down. The planning commission could approve everything else about this and subject it to a settlement of the setback being either according to code or by being granted a variance or a special exception from the Board of Appeals. Okay, so that would be an additional requirement that you'd have to leave on as a condition if you're inclined toward approving the rest of what's being asked of you on this structure. The oversize and the placement forward of the front of the principal building. So there are other provisions in the code. They talk about the building not being more than 18 feet in height and not being taller than the principal structure on the property. I don't have a sense of what the height of the principal structure is. My eyeballs tell me that it's more than 18 feet, and the proposed structure is 18 feet. I also know the grade drops kind of substantially as you go toward this area where this building is proposed to be located. And I question whether there's enough room there to put fill in without encroaching with that construction work and so on in the wetland area. But those things would have to be ironed out. They're very technical in nature, and I think you can work it out with building inspector, spatially. So I guess I would drive the commission back to the two main points you're tasked with considering tonight, and that is the building representative of the style and color and materials that you're looking for? Is the oversize acceptable? And is the placement forward of the principal building acceptable to you? Now, the entire background to the request has a lot to do with the wetland and floodplain limitations on this property. And I was able to print a GIS map that gives you an idea, not only of how encumbered his particular lot is at this location, but it also gives you an idea of, and I would never say never, but it's very unlikely, based on the environmental circumstances, that anything is going to develop to the east of Mr. Porter's property. So from the standpoint of who's going to be impacted here, it's really going to be Mr. Porter's property and the neighbor to the north. And I don't think there's going to be much else coming down the pike in the future. So I think that informs the whole discussion for you, and I'll turn it over to the commission.
So Mary, just clarification on the properties surrounding this, not only to the east, but to the north. That's not a developed lot either, is it?
To the north is a retention pond.
Okay, that's what I thought was up there, so that's never going to be developed either, right? I mean, obviously, because it's retention pond, I would assume.
I don't know if that is a buildable lot or not,
Yeah.
to be honest. It's a platted lot, it has the pond on it, but whether the balance of it is buildable, it looks like it has an individual owner.
I think, I may be wrong here, but I think all the property owners in the Windwalker Highlands, which is my subdivision, I think we all have a vested interest in that.
Okay.
If I,
know the property 3 over, I think you guys all have a vested interest in that, right? Where there's
3 to the,
to the west.
yes, that's a pond as well.
I think it might be, this prior dates me, so I can't.
Yeah, it's the wild owners of Windwalker Highlands.
I guess a follow-up question with that too is you're kind of looking at the property there around it. I always wondered this too, because that road that would be out in front of your house dead ends back there in such a fashion that it looked like it was going to eventually be connected through. Was that, do you know, Mary, the case whenever this property with the subdivision was being developed?
Yeah, I think, I think on that,
I can give you a little
on
history
that
on
never
that
say
if you
never.
want. I can give you a little history on that if you wish. The road that we was talking about would have gone north and towards that cul-de-sac to that subdivision next door. That's where it was supposed to go. But it never got developed that way.
Like kind of circle around and go to the south and.
Yeah, turn to the south.
Right.
That's what it was supposed to do. So that would be a two-way in and a two-way out of that subdivision. Right now, you only have one way in and one way out. And if you have a blockage and you gotta get back into these places back here, you got a problem. And that was a fire issue, and that's what I brought up a long time ago, but I got beat out on it.
Pretty sure that dashed line is right away. I'm looking at the map, because if I quick measure from the corner of the house out to that. Out to the line, 50 feet.
Yep, yeah, I got it. The house is 50 feet back, and that goes to here. So
Yeah.
it's 51 to that way. So that goes from the house. So this is the
Be sure on the public.
is.
There is wood there. You're setting it back a few feet. I think that's gonna fit.
Well,
It's gonna be
the
really
point to
close.
make too is this, so the planning commission really has to, if you're going to grant any kind of approval, you have to make it subject to the building complying with the required setback or securing a variance or a special exception. You don't have a choice on that. Commission can't waive that 35 feet off. But it does look to me like you're gonna be within that 25% rule for a special exception, which means the Board of Appeals doesn't have to find that there's a hardship, meaning that high bar of getting a variance isn't there for this type of an exception. Okay? So I won't speak for the Board of Appeals, but I think the environmental limitations are pretty clear on why this thing would be getting pushed forward a few feet of 35.
Is there setback limitations set for delineating from the wetland? Basically set off of a wetland, delineated the wetland area?
We don't have one. The county used to have one.
Used to?
But the village, when the county stopped enforcing their shoreland ordinance here in the village, that went away.
Oh, okay.
So it defaulted out to whatever the village's ordinances are. We don't have one. I believe Vince enforces 10 feet.
Is that
10-foot setback from wetlands?
I think you can go right to, I believe that's a floodplain back there though, isn't that, if you look at that?
Yeah, the red is the floodplain, so you can build in that floodplain. if
You
you're
build
2 feet
right
above
up.
the regional flood elevation,
To it, yes.
yeah. But the wetland is,
There's no.
I recall talking to Vince about it.
10
on Big
feet, I
Bend
believe.
Road property, and
Yep.
it was hold 10 feet. Just to ensure that construction activity and fill material and all that kind of thing doesn't incidentally spill into the wetland.
You'd probably be okay on the wetland, but you're gonna be really tight up against that floodplain.
It looks like the house currently is.
Yeah.
Is the field staking still out there
Yes.
for the wetland?
The silt fence is basically to the east of my house. I currently have like 3/4 of my yard seeded. And I stopped on purpose knowing that I would like to put the building up here, because I didn't want to waste my money, have a bunch of construction and tear up my new yard. So there is silt fence in place where it's not seeded.
Well, there's gonna be some elevation data on that floodplain area, and you're gonna have to be 2 feet above the regional flood elevation if anything you build. So there's gonna be some topo needed out there for the inspectors to check off.
There's two different pictures of a shed structure in here.
The
And one with 3 doors and one with 2
The
doors.
picture with the 3 doors, that's just to show the live color of my color choice to match my house. That's not the actual building. The actual building is the 3D renderings.
Alright.
You're looking to get heat, lights, electricity out there?
Eventually, yes.
Do we have to address that up front now with Mary, or whatever he decides to do?
That's purely a building inspections issue.
Okay.
He can heat and light this thing if he wants to. I didn't touch on the proposed screening. He does show some plantings along the front side of that building. And I had suggested that those would be 6 feet taller plantings. Again, it's screening it from pretty much himself and his neighbor to the north, which
I looked it up, that is the,
we now know as windwalkers, yeah, warranted too. So, you know, the necessity for the screening, you know, I always think it's nicer look, especially when you're dealing with a metal building. Does your neighborhood require a plan review and approval?
I don't believe so.
Okay. So the detail about the planting recommendation is in my report. If you're inclined to want to invoke that.
That would not be within the sight line of the house to the west, doesn't look like. I guess then the biggest issue would be the setback.
If I can touch on my reasoning for having such an odd setback is, I would like to connect the new garage with my current driveway, so I think it's not, I'm not adding, you know, an odd driveway off the side, it's all gonna be one driveway eventually, so it's, you know, easier
Right,
to
so you can
pull in.
that makes sense.
So that's kind of my reasoning for having such an odd setback, and with, you know, the floodplain and everything else you guys kind of touched on.
If it gets wetter, you're gonna be able to launch a boat out the back of this thing. If they're on the-
If, that's big bad.
It's the rainy season.
this drawing you have, the current, is that 51 feet is the current setback to your house?
Yes, that is according to the survey.
Am I looking at this right, that this drawing actually had an accessory building on here before you overlaid on top of it? It almost looks like it was on the original drawing.
No, that accessory building, that was me,
Okay.
that I added.
Not just the dark lines, but it's got, okay, so you just added that into the,
Mhm.
the CAD itself.
Yeah, it's kind of my,
Okay.
Yeah, looks like the font's different.
Here's a question for you, are they gonna measure the setback out to here,
Yes.
or are they gonna measure it, I mean,
Oh, 31, yeah.
it doesn't start curving until it's beyond the
I
structure.
think that's true, yeah.
I think it's gonna fit within 35 feet
I do
of
too.
the scale.
I do too.
That's a 12-foot utility easement, that's the dash line.
Oh, you're talking about that secondary line, the dotted line?
Yeah, the dash line.
That would be a line of sight line, wouldn't it, for the proposed curve in the road?
Could be, I'm not sure what it's labeled there for, but yeah, the property line goes out to that first solid line, which is, and get them another probably 12 feet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. discussion about a setback.
Well,
Variance.
you need to put in your conditions that it be set back not less than 35 feet.
Okay.
Or an exception to that being approved first by the Board of Appeals.
We good with everything else? Any other questions?
Considering it's basically on that end as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
It's not a,
Or
it's not a
stipulation.
driving by thing.
put a stipulation in, he's gotta throw a roll of toilet paper at the neighbor at least once a week.
I can do that.
Jeff Goodman.
Is that right?
How's the mosquitoes out back there?
It's not too bad. It's not as bad as you think, actually.
All right, need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve this as an accessory structure, with, all of the plan's recommendations built in here, and including one setback being 35 feet, if that's correct.
Second?
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 6D, review, discussion, and possible approval of the business site and operating plans for C Marine Products in care of business owner / applicant Michael Saloni to occupy this building and site with his injection molding, for example, marine dock bunkers business. The property, which is zoned at I-1 light industrial, is located at West Shoe?
Yeah, it's West
230.
Yes.
South 8770, Wing Drive. Tax parcel number 210-596-9001. Property owner is Gerald J. McGowan, revocable living trust of 2020.
This is a really straightforward, I see the W-2. It's really just a tenant occupancy. The new occupant is a plastic molding, injection molding. They make dock bumpers. There's no outside storage of materials, equipment, or supplies proposed as part of the use. There's no new signage that requires a permit. They want to put a little bit of information by vinyl decal on the door, just indicating your name. Recommended conditions that I would suggest you consider if you're leaning toward approval is that the vehicles parked in the 6 parking spaces that he's allotted on that site would be limited to the ones that are licensed, registered, operable, and in current use or service and conduct of the business. And that the building inspector and fire inspector have an opportunity to go through the building prior to occupancy, and that the owner or tenant has to rectify any issues they identify before they can occupy. And that's all I have.
Fire inspector has gone through it. Fire inspector has gone through the fact of chemical he has in there, the type of storage he has to erect in that side of that building in order to store that. That's all been taken care of. And it's all been updated.
Thank you.
Are you Mr. Solani?
I'm not Mike, no, I'm his partner.
Oh, okay,
Mike couldn't be here, so
okay.
I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Well, good that somebody
Concerns.
came. That's,
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Can you describe your process a little bit on how you make the
Process, it's part A and part B. It goes into an injection machine, which then injects it into a mold. Once the part's cured, the part comes out of the mold, and then you have a finished product.
You said you've looked at part A, part B, and no concerns with those?
Yes, we've got that taken care of.
Yeah,
He
we
knows
supplied,
he knows what he has to have in order to have
we
it.
supplied MSDS sheets to him, quite some time ago, and, he made the recommendations and we took care of those.
Any other questions?
Bill, what's in the other two buildings there to the south of him?
Pardon me?
What, are the other two buildings to the south of him empty?
No.
Dr.
What's
Scott's?
his name's in there, that does the plowing and,
Right. Landscaping.
yeah,
Dr.
landscaping,
Scott's.
yeah. He's still in there.
Just out of curiosity, your part A, part B, has that got any, like toluene diisocyanate or anything in it that you guys use?
One is an isocyanate, yes.
One is?
One is, yeah.
Is the fire department properly prepared for that? Some really nasty chemical.
Yeah, it would be partly prepared for it. We don't have a problem with it. If not, we will make sure that we are properly prepared for it.
How much do you carry on site at any given time?
Of the ISO,
Yeah,
it's not quite like a 66 to 33 mix.
okay.
So, if we had 400 gallons of A and B together, 150 of that would be isocyanate.
Is it TDI or MDI?
Nah, I do not know.
The other part, is it just polyol?
Part B
Yeah,
is
part B.
poly. Yes.
Poly, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Polyol. How do you get that in, totes?
Currently drums.
Drums, okay.
We could go to totes in the future.
Oh, okay. Not by my means, I just,
Yeah, yeah, it's drums right now.
okay.
I'd like to add about the storage outside. Is there opposition to storing pallets outside, empty pallets, to be used for shipping?
Typically, that would have to be screened from the surrounding view. Where would you be storing?
If you look at, I'm not familiar with the directions. If you look at the drawn map. Okay, so it's, page 4. See where the 44-foot 11-inch is? Stated alongside the building? Right there.
That's pretty visible from Wind Drive. If you look at the street view. Is it street view? Yeah. So if you look at that street view map from Google, that would be right along.
Yeah, where you see the, I don't know what they are, blue containers alongside the building.
How many?
Whoa, we're talking like a dozen, maybe 2 dozen at the most.
It's up to the commission. 2 dozen neatly stacked pallets against the building wall.
Right up against those trees, ain't it? They're pretty close. Is that, it says overhead doors at 4411, I assume.
That is incorrect. I don't know where this drawing came from. Yeah, there's no overhead door there.
There's no the overhead doors on the 30-foot 2 part, right?
There's an overhead door there and the wall where you can see the service door on that, I wish there was a direction, towards the road.
Yeah,
There's
that's west.
okay, that's west. So there's an overhead door there, but not where the 44-foot 11 is.
I don't think there's any trees though, is there?
Well,
There used to be.
Yeah, the back of that building, there's more or less a swale that runs behind those buildings. All the way from pretty much near the corner up there, and it runs right behind all those, behind margins.
Yeah.
Actually, it's a runoff of what you call it,
Shamrock?
Yeah, right, runs behind Shamrock.
Behind Shamrock goes behind Martin's
Yeah.
Automotive and then runs down through that.
Yeah.
But Mike, weren't you talking about trees out front to like?
No, I'm talking about at the back, there are trees at the back, not at the front, the trees at the front.
So the pallets would still be visible from the front to a certain degree. Not, I don't think greatly.
No. Beats tires.
Did you say it beats tigers?
It beats tires.
Oh, tires. Yeah, that's better. I need to make sure that it says beats tires and not tigers on it. I'm just looking for identification on the door, no sign.
Yes,
Proper bathroom facilities, everything of that nature?
okay.
The breezeway connecting all three of these buildings? It kinda looks like it.
Yeah, there is a, I guess, an entrance or hallway, if you will, going into the next building over.
Is that, I mean, is that connected? Is there a door through there to get to the other facility?
Yes.
Okay. But that's not your business? Is it?
No.
I think there's two sets of double doors, that connection is pretty much an overhead roof. Maybe, I don't think it's even, it is walled in, but other than that,
I would suggest if there's occupants that have a common door to your facility like that, that Inspector, I'd put it in your hands to make sure that they know that there's diazocyanates that's being stored next door.
You got,
Just because if things go south with that, it can take out a whole bunch of people in a hurry.
I'll make a motion to approve the plan of operations site plan approval for, Michael Saloni doing business as Sea Marine Products.
Second.
We're going to allow the outside storage of up to 24 pallets or no?
Yeah, because I think that's part of the business, is going to need a little bit of leeway there.
Okay.
Neatly stacked against the
At least
wall.
stacked against the wall.
Cheap heat.
They'll be in the shade a lot of the time.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Good night.
On to item E, review, discussion, and possible approval of the revised standard application form for Lake Park storage condos to use occupancy. This item is village initiated.
I explained this mostly at the start of the meeting. We started with one application form. The commission decided there was some additional information you'd like applicants to share up front. So that was added as an addendum A. The two were merged together. And then recent, we're kind of trying to find our groove, I think, on how to circulate the applications, how to review them, make sure they're complete, get them out to all the parties that weigh in on whether they can be approved or not. And then I guess Jason cuts loose with an occupancy permit. So the question came up specifically with this revised application. Should we be, can we and should we be asking for building inspection and fire department to go into each one of these occupancies of all sorts, whether it's storage? I don't know if you can do that to a storage occupancy. Go in and have fire inspections done.
Well,
Unless they describe themselves as a business.
these aren't storage, these are condos.
Some are pure personal storage applications.
store
They're
stuff.
being sold as a storage condo. It's not a rental unit, at least most of them aren't. I think we have to require fire inspection on these. Building inspection is required on any new building and any, I think we have to work on how to synchronize those with occupancy sandwiched somewhere in between the two. Jason's gonna approve a building inspection, once the building's built, he kind of washes his hands of it outside of watching for violations.
Right.
But Bill can't do an inspection until after they have occupancy and move in and start storing
So I
or.
can see what they got in there.
Right, yeah, you can't do a building inspection or a fire inspection prior to occupancy. So we have to figure out a way, I think, to grant a occupancy contingent on a fire inspection within X amount of days of that occupancy. And I understand these people may not,
In the final one. Might have been so small, I don't know if anybody even noticed it. I proposed some language
yes,
to try.
no, I
to
didn't see the
accomplish-
blue.
Okay,
Yes, that's exactly what we need.
I stuck it in there because this came up kind of late in the game and I just wanted to get it in front of the commission. Did you see that language, Jason and Bill? You wanna give-
No,
Here, I'll sit back there.
here, give them my whole thing. I can have,
I got a copy.
Oh, okay.
never mind all what I said, Mary had it covered already.
But basically what it would say is the applicant, on the application form now, we would have a provision that says the applicant is aware that an initial inspection of the unit occupancy, for instance, within 2 weeks of occupancy, by the village's building inspector and fire inspector, and periodically thereafter, as frequently as, but not more than biannually, to ascertain the tenant and owner compliance with the terms of the occupancy approval may be conducted. And so that really requires too that you understand that when occupancy approvals are being given, it's being given based on the facts of what you gave us in your application. So if you're doing something different, you're in violation, right? So that's an implied fact. So this would go on to say then that within 2 weeks of your full occupancy, we're going to come and inspect, and we're going to inspect you biannually, up to biannually thereafter.
So the one that, like the first one that we looked at tonight, did not have that additional language in there.
It did not. Neither did the whole first batch.
So the section of these 4 sheets, 2 of them are no longer being used at all.
They wouldn't be
These are
if you
folded into
approve,
this one.
yeah, if you approve this last one, that
Got
would
it.
become the new official application.
I think it's a good process to be able to, have this up front, discuss anything that would need to happen, and then 2 weeks after they move in, to be able to do the inspections to make sure that they're in compliance with what they said they were going to have, and that fire and building is ascertained and everything's good to go. I mean, they've gotta move in. The big thing is we need to follow that process.
And if they don't follow the process, maybe we should have a fine in there for that.
And we have to follow that process too.
I think we do have fines built into the ordinances for.
I do
buil-
believe we do
for
have
building
fines built
inspector
into
or
our
the fire
ordinance for that
inspector
particular reason.
levy.
Right.
I have not checked with the village attorney on the question of whether we can require these kinds of inspections, and whether we can invoke it now after the development agreement and deed restriction has already been approved and recorded. So that's a question that remains to be answered, but
I do
expediency's sake,
believe,
we wanted to get it on this agenda.
Mary, I do believe that would be required by insurance companies. That's why we get the 2% dues for the businesses that are in this community, that we do the inspections. We get so much money, this community gets so much money per thousand.
Why would this
And I
be
do
any-
believe that's part of it.
Why would this be any different than any of the subdivided buildings over in industrial park.
And that was my question too.
Right.
If this is a building that could be shared by 4 different occupants, it's in everybody's best interest, we know what's in there in every unit.
Right.
Yeah. I like the idea. I think this is our fail-safe on
Well,
ensuring that this thing doesn't go, wrong.
Otherwise, anybody can tell us anything that they want to.
Right.
I'll be storing my grandmother's books in there, and then they go in and use it for meth lab for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
I don't think that
Way to
happens.
go to the extreme.
0 to 60.
Those are the fireworks, that's even better.
Do you need a special cap for this one?
You're not wrong.
I'm not, because I
Pedal to the
have to
metal.
clean those up. I mean, it is the extreme, yes it is, but then we get other things in there that we now have issues with,
Correct.
right now, as we speak.
Well, I like this forum. I think it really speaks to the nature of what we've been talking about the last 2 months particularly. And it gives us a little bit of more of a lever with some of these people. This is what you signed, this is what you said, and this is what you agreed to, and this is not what you're doing.
I think it's a good forum.
I'm going to guess that once we distribute this form to Damon
Excuse me.
and others, that they're going to say, whoa, wait a second. Can you require that of us? What do you think? Do you think they're going to buck up on it? or
I
not?
don't think so.
I
I
think
think they just want,
No,
I think
they're
they
not.
want in.
Okay.
Jamin will not, I've already had this discussion
Right.
with him and
Oh,
told him
okay.
that we needed to head this way because just safety of, other tenants and residents around there.
Right.
And he was all on board for it. But like he said, he wants to get it done in front,
That's right.
button up as many loose ends as you can right in the beginning. Any other comments or suggestions on the form?
So with this being said, with this form filled out, then upon Bill's basically inspection, or Bill and I both go in there in 2 weeks when everybody's moved in, then we can issue occupancy if we don't see anything we don't, that isn't gonna be on here, and then we give you guys a copy of this too, or?
As long as it's not a business type environment where we have to approve the site plan of operations, because that would have to come here first and then you'd get it. Otherwise, yeah, that's a staff level approval.
Right now, the only ones we have is the diamond floor guy and, I don't
The
even know.
diesel guy.
The
Yeah,
diesel guy, right.
he left, right?
I don't know if he did or not.
Okay.
That I don't know. I didn't get in there. So I can't tell you.
Well, that you may have pulled out.
Yeah, well, 'cause I guess when you guys hammered, I didn't follow him on line or whatever, but I guess who caught him advertising, stuff? You did?
Tony did, yeah.
I think we all did.
Well, I did because of the fact when I went in there that one time to look at it, I didn't fill a report or nothing, but I told Jeremy, I said, hey, wait a minute, this is going a little bit, I think, over the line. I said, you better have this looked at. I don't know what happened. I think Tony, you looked at it or somebody got into it and opened it up a little bit more.
I think Greg Peterson.
I was gonna say,
Well, because I warned him, when he filled out his first application, I said, this is a detail shop. I said, this is not gonna turn into a repair shop. I'm like,
Right.
what do you know, and he's like, I'm like, I don't care if you're detailing a vehicle at a time or whatever, but this cannot turn into a major repair. You know how that goes. They're gonna start doing everything they can to make a buck. And he's like, no. And then somebody said they saw it online that he was advertising like oil changes or something,
Yep.
and whatever. And then that's when Jamin, I believe, got involved, and then they put the clamps on, and then
So he's gone?
I don't know
know.
what happened there.
So how do we check that out? I mean,
I'll
just assuming?
get on it.
Oh, we'll get in there.
Oh.
We both will
That
get
was
on it.
just, that's good,
That's got, yeah,
It's a building.
right, I was gonna say, we really can only ask the building owner.
Yeah.
No, then they need to be held accountable too, the
Yeah.
person that owns those units and leases them back out. We discussed this up front, because somebody could buy the place and lease it out to another person that rents it out to a third person. I know I'm taking that to the extreme, but we're already to step 2. Could go to step 3.
In
Yeah.
reality,
Control
though,
it.
if in future storage condos, if they come on our, I don't know if you could, I don't know, legally you could do that, say that these have to be owner occupied, and they cannot be a third, like a rental, I don't know if that's legal or not.
Can't do it.
You can't?
Right, but we did say that we could go back to the legal owner and request, because they have to have control
So
of
we
what's
govern,
in
we
there.
govern the landlord.
Yeah. I believe it's what we decided
Yeah.
But
upon.
this
I think
form
the
will
landlord-
define the conditional use. So if they
The
do
developer
sublet
restricted
it,
that.
Yeah,
And there's a condo owners association.
Well, I was
as
just
well,
gonna say,
which
they are gonna
should
create
be-
a HOA, because I do believe once phase 2 is done, they're gonna be done with that project, and then all we have is the HOA, which I don't know how that's even gonna be set up, or what that's gonna entail, because I don't know if these guys all signed agreements that they're gonna put in, whatever.
It's gonna be just exactly like the business park over on Industrial Drive, where we're at the mercy of each building owner and prospective tenant to be aware that an application form has to be filled out before you take occupancy. And half of the time, it seems to me, Bill, nobody in the business park respects that fundamental requirement. They all come after the fact. They come after the fact. Everybody moves in everywhere in the village, in these industrial spots.
Right.
And
And then they all say that, well,
They come back
my
after.
neighbors are doing it,
Yeah.
so why are you picking on me?
A lot of times they'll come to me, like for instance, the gentleman was just here, I forget, I think he called for an occupancy, and then I asked him, I said, did you go in front of the board? And he goes, well, no, I didn't know we had to.
yeah.
And then I had him come down by Elena, and then fill out, and go through the proper channels, and
I
it turns
feel like
out.
it's become a well-known thing that there's no harm in doing that. And the village might want to consider doing a letter to all of the property owners in the village, the business and industrial zoned property owners, and letting them know that a change in occupancy, let them know exactly what the code says, and when a pre-approval is required, and what application forms have to be filled out before you occupy. And also telling them that the village is allowed to invoke, to assess an after-the-fact permit application, a fine for an after-the-fact permit application. And say it softly, be business-friendly, but it's a public service announcement. We're having trouble with this. We want to rely on you guys to do a better job of it. If things don't improve, we're gonna, start levying the fine.
What's been catching it lately for the last 20 years is me.
I
When
know,
I go in there and, wait a minute, you weren't in here last year.
yeah. So why is that happening?
You're right, I know, but,
And the village is not getting any benefit back out of that.
No,
because I can guarantee
exactly.
They're not getting any tax. coming
Sales
back
tax
out
and so
of
forth,
anything.
everything else,
They don't
right.
know that they're there, they have no
Yeah.
business permits, and
yeah, you know that.
there's a lot of
Well,
liability
get
in
on it.
that.
And then that's up to you guys to do the rest, and the permits and the fines and so forth and everything else.
Yeah.
I mean, I can be nice and